Hey everyone, it's Vas back with another video, and there's actually just a couple things that I wanted to discuss before I actually get into the contents of this video. One, I apologize for any weird noises. It's kind of a little hectic at the house today. It's been very windy. I don't know what happened. There's been a 180 with the weather these days, and it's extremely windy and you can hear it everywhere. So I apologize on that. And secondly, I do want to apologize for not posting consistently like I had promised. And I know there's not very many followers at the moment, but at the same time, I, don't really feel happy that that's kind of what happened. But sometimes life just gets in the way and you don't have enough time to do all the things you want to do and have promised to do. But I'm back to filming now, so things should be posted a little bit more regularly these days and back to my consistent posting schedule. But again, I apologize for having to take a little break. It wasn't something that I wanted to do, but I was just needed elsewhere and I just didn't have enough time or energy to really, read or film or do any topics. But getting that out of the way, I am very, very excited, and you guys can tell because this is my happy face, right? Like, you guys know, once you see this smile, this is genuine content, right? Well, it's always genuine content, but when I'm happy, I'm very happy. And when I tell you I am so happy to film this video, it is, of course, another book review, and it is on Wicked Serve by Grace Reilly. And guys, when I tell you this, I've been waiting 1 full year for this book to come out. This is book number 4 in her Interconnected Standalone series, and it is her last book in this series. So this series is based at McKee University, and I believe it's a university in New York, and it's about the Callahan family, or more importantly, the Callahan siblings. So there is James, who's the oldest sibling. He is a football prodigy. He plays D1 football for McKee University, and he's kind of the oldest brother who sets off all the other siblings going to McKee. And then there is Cooper, who is his younger brother, that plays hockey. Okay, and then there's Sebastian, who I believe he's the same age as Cooper, and he's a baseball star. Okay, now Sebastian's backstory is that I believe James and Cooper's parents are actually his godparents. I know that his dad was best friends with Sebastian's father, and Sebastian's family ended up passing away in a car accident. He was the only survivor, and the Callahans adopted and took him in. So they've raised him as their own, and he is very much a part of the family, and he is their sibling. Okay. And then they have a younger sibling. They have a younger sister named Isabel, otherwise known as Izzy. And she is a volleyball star. Okay, so all of them play D1 for McKee University. And it starts off with James. He actually transfers into McKee University, but that's not necessarily the school that he wanted to go to. Now, I cannot remember if Cooper and Sebastian had originally picked McKee University or they just went there because James was there. That I can't remember. But nevertheless, all the siblings are at McKee University at some point. Isabel is the youngest one, so she doesn't actually share, I don't think she actually overlaps with James at all. I think he's already graduated, but she ends up overlapping with her 2 older brothers, Cooper and Sebastian. Now, the reason why I'm explaining so much of this in terms of their sibling relationship is because you get a lot of their sibling relationship, and because the boys go to McKee and they're in their later years, the parents just rent them a house so all the siblings can live together. So when it's time for James to graduate and move on to, going to the NFL, Isabel comes in and she takes his room or takes his space in the house. So all the siblings end up living together, and they actually really do like it that all the siblings live together. They're like best friends to each other. Yes, they are very overprotective of each other, but they don't actually get in each other's ways. right? In terms of like hookups, in terms of like friends and parties and stuff. Like they don't really like put the hammer down and say to Isabel, no, you can't go out, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like they do not cross those lines with each other. So it's a very, very nice sibling relationship to see, right? And you can tell how much the siblings really do love each other and they're very protective of each other, but they know when to not cross that line. And I am reiterating that because you see that in not just the first book, like you see that throughout the entire series. And something that I am very grateful that Grace Reilly did was that she did not ruin the characters' reputations with each other. Like they did not ruin the integrity of the characters. She stood by them from the beginning, and they, even though they had reactions to certain storylines, it was never like an over the top reaction to where siblings were no longer friends anymore or where the siblings no longer felt loved by each other. It was very much, you knew that the love was there. So let's just get into it. Okay, so Wicked Serve by Grace Reilly, like I said, is book number 4 in this interconnected standalone series. Book number 1 is James' book. It is First Down because of football. Book number 2 is called Breakaway because it's Cooper's book and he's a hockey star. The third book is called Stealing Home for Sebastian's, baseball career. And then we have book number 4, Wicked Serve, which emphasizes Isabel or Izzy's volleyball career. Now, like I said, all of these books take place at Mickey University. Now, what I absolutely loved about Wicked Serve was that Isabel's character is just amazing. Like you come to love her so much in the first 3 books that by the time you get to book number 4, you are just ready. I was very excited to read this book. One, because it was a female athlete, so I don't really get to read many of those. 2, it was a volleyball. The sport was volleyball for her, and that was something that I never read, guy or girl. And I was very curious to see what this secret fling was going to look like because it was with Nick, or Nikolai Volkov, who is Cooper's like enemy on the ice. Okay. And I am here for all the drama. I am here for, brothers, anything, if it's brother's best friend, I'm here for it. If it's brother's rival, I'm here for it. I'm here for all of that. Especially if it's a sports romance and it's a college sports romance, I am definitely eating that shit up. Okay. So when I tell you that I was so excited to read this book and wait that full year for it because I knew it was going to be a masterpiece. Like one thing that I absolutely love about Grace Reilly is the fact that she really took her time with each of these books. Like she released them 1 year apart from each other. Now I'm not exactly sure if the first 2 books were released 1 year apart from each other, but I know Stealing Home came out last August, August of 2023, and Wicked Serve came out August 2024. So I know she's spending the time to really, write these books, okay? And really get the story correct. So I really appreciate that by her. Even though I did have to wait a while, I don't care. Now, when I read Wicked Serve actually on my Kindle, okay, that's just like my case, but I read it on here, so you can actually see Wicked Serve right there. And I wasn't sure if it was actually going to be on Kindle Unlimited because I had a couple other books that I wanted to read this month and they weren't on there. So I was kind of afraid that Wicked Serve was not going to be under Kindle Unlimited, but I was. And as soon as it was available, I downloaded it and it took me like 2 days to read it, honestly. I was just that good. Okay, let's get into it. I keep saying that, but there's just like more and more and more that I need to say. So with Wicked Serve, like I said, it is Izzy and Nikolai's story, and Nick is actually her brother's like rival on the ice. So at the end of Stealing Home, where we kind of get alluded into Isabel's story, she is given an internship or given like this job with this woman who plans events, okay? And Her name is Catherine, and she is actually a friend of Isabel's mother. Okay, they kind of like run in the same circle. Nick is actually Catherine's son, but we don't know that yet. Okay, we don't actually learn that until Isabel's story. The only thing that we know is that she has been working for Catherine and it's going really well over the summer, and that she kind of has a bit of a fling, but she's not telling anybody about it. She doesn't know what it's going to come about. She does let us know in Stealing Home that Cooper cannot find out about the person that she's seeing. Okay, so that gives us that hint. So fast forward, we get to Wicked Serve, and it's the prologue, and it is her time during the summer. Okay, she and Nick have the cutest relationship already off the bat. Like when I tell you, you see them, they've built their own routine during the summer in New York where they are just going out on dates, spending time together. We don't really hear or we don't actually read any of the spicy scenes or the steamy scenes that happen during the summer. We just know that that's what the nature of the relationship is that they are kind of doing like a friends with benefit type of situation, a fling, a summer fling. It's not going to go past the summer. He's going to go back to Massachusetts to play at UMass, and she's going to go back to Mickey. But you get the idea right away that they're so cute and they work so well together that you're like, he's definitely already fallen for her. Okay, and they're just so cute. Like you're like, this is not just a friends with benefit type of situation. This is something more. Like there are legit feelings here. So we get a little snippet of them like during the summer, but then chapter 1 begins with Isabel like at volleyball practice or getting ready to begin the school year. And she's just like looking over text messages that he sent her, right? Kind of like their goodbye. And she explains it that she woke up, you know, the morning and he wasn't there. There was no note, no nothing. He never said goodbye to her. They just assumed, okay, that's just like our last encounter because it's the last of the summer. And he hasn't messaged her. He messaged her a very beautiful message, like a text message, but she doesn't really know what to make of it. And she just feels kind of like, okay, well, you know, I thought we were actually friends and I thought he was going to say goodbye to me. Now she's feeling very hurt and type of way, and she just feels kind of used. Given the nature of the relationship, she's like, I really shouldn't think otherwise. But I guess she felt that, you know, they actually really did enjoy each other's company outside of, you know, the steamy stuff that they were doing. But she's just like, you know what? I need to focus this year on, you know, my schooling, my grades. I really want to get my position back on the team. And the only way to convince my coach of that is if I'm really serious and I have no distractions. And that's kind of like what her coach says to her anyways. Now, I don't like her coach at all. I think she's actually a mean girl. I think that she's very jealous of Isabel and just doesn't, she does end up teaching Isabel very valuable lessons about life and about the sport. But I think she just did it in a very mean way. And it is a way that is not really respected by her parents and is not really respected by other teammates. Like I said, I don't really like her, but you know what? It's fine, whatever, it's for the plot. Isabel is just trying to work hard about this. Now we switch over to Nikolai's point of view and we find out that he's actually been expelled from UMass. And the reason he was expelled was because he took the fall for one of his teammates about an incident that happened. I'm going to keep that incident a secret. Now, Nikolai is actually the captain of his hockey team, okay, at UMass. So it made sense for him to take the fall, right? He's like, this is my team. I'm responsible for all of their actions, even if I didn't actually do anything. Now, Nikolai also has a very wealthy background. His grandfather on his mom's side is actually very wealthy. He has his own company. Nikolai is set to inherit the company and become the boss of that company, to run it, but that's not really his plans. His plans are to make it to the NHL and be a hockey star, right? But because of his expulsion from UMass, he needs to find another competitive university that's equivalent to UMass, because he is set to go to the NHL. He has an offer ready and everything like that. He's just waiting to get called up. And in the meantime, he wanted to finish his degree no matter what. And so his grandfather kind of has to pull some strings to get him at McKee, because that's the only school that is like has like the same reputation, and they've been winning at the Frozen Fours. So it's just kind of like a no-brainer, right? Nikolai's like, well, I'm supposed to stay away from Isabel, but now that I'm going to be going to her school, let's see what's going to come of this. And he's actually really excited about that thought, even more so than playing hockey, if we can read between the lines. But his grandfather says to him, well, the only way that I'm going to let you go here is if you agree to work for me after you graduate. And don't go to hockey, and you're going to go and get your MBA from Columbia and then work with me. So that's kind of the deal that they make. He doesn't really like it because he wants to play professional hockey. However, Nick has a very complicated relationship with his biological father, who's not really in his life at the moment. I wouldn't say there's no contact, because he still picks up his phone calls, but he hasn't seen him in, I think, like 10 years or something. I think he's like 21 at the moment, and the last time he saw his dad was when he was 13. Now, I'm going to leave that storyline there because I don't want to spoil it, obviously, and the book did just come out. But like I said, Nick has a very complicated relationship with his father. His father was actually a hockey star, and that's kind of where he got his talent from. But it didn't really work out the way that he wanted it to. I think his dad is trying to hold on to Nick because, one, he looks exactly like him, and then two, he has his talent, and I think he's trying to relive his glory days through his son. Since Nick doesn't really have a good relationship with his dad, and his mom and his grandfather are completely no contact with his father, he kind of feels like he owes it to his grandfather to take this job after graduating and kind of giving up hockey, because hockey was his father's dream, and that's kind of like, it resembles too much. Like, Nick does not want to be like his father at all, and him giving up his one dream because he shares that with his father is so heartbreaking, right? Like, you don't actually realize the extent to his love for hockey until the end, because throughout the entire novel, at least how I interpreted it, was that, hockey is his dream and he loves it and he plays it so well, but because it's connected to his dad, it's so tainted. And because his grandfather really did help him and his mom get out of a bad situation when they were younger, he feels like he owes his grandfather his life, and that he can't burden them and make them suffer with him loving this sport and being connected to it, because it's just a reminder of his father. You don't really realize how much he loves the sport until the end, because throughout the entire book, he's like, well, these are going to be the last times I play the game, right? He's not even thinking about having a career in hockey because of that deal that he's made with his granddad. So it's like, like I said, you don't realize that extent, but Nick is actually very selfless, and you don't expect it to be. He even says it himself, that he is given the opportunity, because he has his family connections and he has money and wealth, that it's okay for him to mess up because he has other options. He knew that his teammate who kind of messed up didn't have that option, and he said, you know what, he needs to stay at school more than me. My family will figure it out. It's not an excuse per se, because he doesn't go around like screwing things over thinking like his family can fix it. He just thought naturally, I have the resources to get out of the situation. He doesn't. His life literally could be ruined over a stupid mistake. So he takes the fall. They get to McKee University, and he has his first interaction with the coach, and he has his first interaction with Cooper. And it ends up being a very good interaction, like so civil. But he does say to him, I need you to stay away from my sister. I do not forget that comment that you made to me about her, and just let it be. And he knows, right? Like, he's not stupid. He knows that Isabel was working for Nick's mom over the summer. So he says to him, hey, you know what? Like, my sister told me that you guys never really ran into each other during the summer, but you know, you're in our school now and you guys probably will run into each other. I'm asking you to stay away. Okay. But Nick, you know what? He's actually a pretty stand-up guy. He even says it to himself that he apologizes to Nick. He does apologize to Cooper about the comment that he made about Isabel, and even about Penny, because he made two comments that day about, like, you know, their looks, and he did apologize. So Nick is a stand-up guy. Like, he's actually a stand-up guy. The stuff that he does on the ice is to instigate and to make it a good game and to ensure that his team wins. Okay, but he's not doing that like outside of the rink. But yeah, so when Isabel finally sees him, and it's quite quick actually, it's in the first few chapters, she's like, what is happening here? When they have a conversation and he tells her that he got expelled, she immediately turns into like that friend of his, or that lover, where she's compassionate. And, you know, they have nicknames for each other. And the one thing that I thought was so beautiful was that Nick always calls Izzy Isabel. Everyone else calls her Izzy or Iz, some kind of variation of her name or some kind of nickname. But he's made it clear time and time again, I am not your friend. Okay? And he calls her Isabel. And because he has like a bit of a Russian accent, and the way that he says it, his voice is deep, she's like, it just does something to me, right? She likes that he calls her Isabel because her name's so pretty. Like, it's a pretty name, right? And it just shows that he's like different from everybody else, right? Which is actually quite relatable, because I know plenty couples where they call each other by their full names, but other friends and family members have like nicknames for them. So I find that like super cute. But yeah, and then she calls him Nick, and nobody else calls him Nick. You know, everybody else has like other names for him. So he kind of has that same thought of, you know, when she says it, it hits different. She kind of jumps into that like compassionate, empathetic role with him, but her feelings for him is just a little too strong, that she's like, I can't actually be with you in person. Like, I can't actually have a conversation with you without feeling like, you know, I want to do more, or like I want to kiss you. And he's the same way too. Yeah, so the relationship is a little complicated with each other. She's angry at him for leaving. He doesn't know how to make it better and how to explain it properly to her. But nevertheless, there's a few encounters that go by where they keep running into each other. And it's funny because Isabel keeps saying, she's like, how, like, this campus is so big, like all of a sudden it feels so small because they keep running into him. So they do eventually talk and figure that out, and they decide to kind of resume that friends with benefit relationship kind of from the summer, and, you know, keep it a secret. They end up reinstating that relationship, and they're really cute together. And the scenes, oh my goodness, Grace Reilly really gave us a lot of steamy scenes in this one. Like, even for the nature of the book, I found it to be a lot, and I'm not complaining, but it was definitely was something a little different than what I've read before, but definitely loved it. And I think the reason that I loved it was because Nick has always explained or alluded to his relationship with his dad, and his, you know, relationship with himself, and how he sees himself, and how he feels like he cannot cross certain lines because then he would be exactly like his dad. And you really see him at odds with himself throughout the entire novel. And you actually see him actively trying to do better and to be aware of what's happening, okay? And I honestly think that's the most relatable thing ever. Even though his past is not something that I have experienced, I found it to be extremely relatable because he's actively trying to work towards something. And just the relationship, I love it. They're so cute together. I can't. They are actually meant to be for each other. This is probably one of the first books that I've read where the main book is supposed to be about Isabel. Obviously, it's Isabel and Nick's story, but it's Isabel's family, right? We wouldn't have Nick's story if it wasn't for Isabel because it's her family. But I've never been so invested in the guy's perspective or in the guy's family life in like a long time, because like I'm very invested in his journey. It really is known, like he goes through so much in this book, and God bless Isabel because she really is there for him, even if it's not to be as a girlfriend. Like she's there for him as a friend and somebody that knows so much about his past. Now, when they do actually become a couple, one of the things that they work on is him opening up to her and explaining everything, because up until they become boyfriend and girlfriend, he's kept her a little bit at an arm's length because he's afraid that he's gonna do something bad to her, that he's gonna hurt her. When he's finally able to open up to her and explain to her everything that's kind of happened, or enough that's happened, she's able to kind of give him what he needs, right? And it's even more heartbreaking at the end. They don't really have a third act breakup. They do have a bit of like a break, but he makes it specifically clear to her that this is not a breakup. Okay. But at the end, like I said, this book is extremely relatable, regardless of not having actually experienced the incidences or the things that actually do happen to them. It is so relatable because Grace Reilly did something so beautiful with her writing, in that there was all of these scenarios, all of these situations that occurred. And when you've read so many romance novels and you know that they want to be dramatic and that they want to be a little outlandish because it is a story that you're trying to escape to, you don't want to really add too much realism in it. However, Grace Reilly has a beautiful balance of both. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, we get to these certain situations and scenarios, and you're thinking, okay, she's probably gonna go this way. And she doesn't. She goes the more, I don't want to say predictable, but she goes the more relatable route that probably actually would happen in real life between two consenting adults. Okay, two people who could actually talk to each other would actually communicate with each other. So she didn't go through the miscommunication trope. She literally said, you know what, I'm not going to ruin this relationship. I'm going to make it as real as possible. And that's what happened. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I'm crying. Like I'm actually crying. Like I teared up so many times during this novel, and I never thought I would. But the reason I teared up was because it was so relatable. It's like I pictured myself, with my partner having this discussion and trying to make it right and to communicate, and it brought me to tears. Okay, and then Nick does the best thing ever for their relationship. He steps away and says, I need to make sure I'm good before we can be good together, and you're going to be in my life regardless. Like you are going to become my wife, but I need to make sure I'm good before we get there. I cannot put you through this. Like, I need to figure my shit out. And to his credit, he has a lot of shit that he needs to figure out, like legitimate stuff. And she's like, I can't even be mad at it because this is the right thing to do. And I just want you to get help and I want you to be better, but I want you to come back to me. And she has a small point where she feels like he might not come back to her because she's giving him too much space. But he's really, really putting in the effort. And he says it, he's like, I gotta put in the effort because if I don't do it now, he goes, I'm gonna lose her. And he goes, I don't want that life. He goes, I want her in my life always. And this is not healthy. If I wanna have a family, I need to figure it out. Yeah, so he does the responsible thing, and they kind of, I guess, figure it, he figures out his own stuff and they do come back together. Once I got to the epilogue, I literally said, that's it. My Kindle said 97% done. And I was like, what? I wanted more. I was so invested in this novel and the story. It's not even funny. That's only happened a couple times to me where I'm like, oh my god, it's almost done. And because on your Kindle you don't really realize it, you just kind of like read. You don't really know. Of course I have the percentage and the page numbers listed, but like, or like even like the hours listed, but when you're that invested in a story, you're not looking at any of that stuff. You're not looking at your stats. You're looking at the story itself. And I wanted more. I wanted more, but honestly, like when I tell you guys, I loved this story. Please go out and read it. Honestly, go out and read it. It came out on August 13, 2024. So it's just go out and read it, guys. It's a beautiful book. And if you haven't read the other books in the series, I do suggest starting and going back and reading the first book. In my opinion, the first book isn't it's one of my favorites in terms of like the storyline, and how it's written is not exactly my favorite. Breakaway was actually my favorite. Now, that could also be a little bit of a bias of I do prefer hockey over football, but I can also recognize that this is Grace Reilly's very first book. It was her debut novel, so I was very forgiving with the writing, and it's not a bad read at all, and the writing is not bad at all. It just took me a minute to get into it, but once you start getting used to her style and you get into the other books, you'll just love it. Okay, and you know, each story is a little is unique in its own. So I really did enjoy it, but I do suggest going back and reading all of them. It does help get the full scope of it, and to really come to love the characters and come to love the sibling relationship that went on forever at the beginning. And I guess my final thoughts on Wicked Serve is that I did give it a 5-star. There was one tiny inconsistency that I did pick up on that I thought could have had maybe a sentence or two more to kind of explain it. But overall, when I looked at it, I was like, it still is technically explained. It's just not explained to the detail that I would have liked. So that's kind of like a personal preference, but there were no loose ends really. And I felt like the story did come around completely, which is why I give it a 5-star. And I will go through this a little bit more in other videos of how I do rate my novels and how I rate the stories. But just to kind of give you guys a little insight into this rating is that I gave it a 5-star because of how I felt. The writing was good. The writing was excellent. There wasn't any like editing or grammatical errors. So right off the bat, that gives it a good score. I love the characters, so that's up there. You know, of course, because I do like to read steamy romances, the way that was written was also, it also adds to my rating. And, you know, I just absolutely loved it. And, you know, again, just like the relatability to it and the way that it was handled, like the way that the couple themselves handled situations together right off the bat really made it a good book for me because it was actually a very healthy book. Now, a lot of these romance novels, depending on what type the tropes are and what type of genre it is, people will debate whether the characters are toxic or not, and whether, you know, if stuff like this did happen in real life, that they would, you know, run away, they wouldn't entertain it. But I thought that the way she wrote Nick's backstory and the way that they communicated with each other, I absolutely loved it. It was so relatable. It was something that I could see real couples actually dealing with and working together to get to the other side. And like I said, it made me tear up, it made me cry because of that. So I can't really not give it a 5-star because it was fun. It made me laugh. Like, it was steamy, it was funny, it made me cry. It was relatable. Like I feel like it really just gave me like every emotion possible. Okay, it checked all the boxes really. So that is going to be the end of this very long video. I apologize. I'm so sorry. But I guess it's been a while since I picked up a camera, and I just had so much to say about this novel specifically. But yes, that is going to be the end of this video. And like I said, I apologize for not posting, more consistent like I had, promised, but I'm planning to get back on that schedule shortly. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and comment down below. And, if you have anything that you specifically want to see, just, type it out in the comments or in the community page. I'll see it. Okay, so that will be the end of this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay.